This book display features books about diseases and disorders, and this topic tends to be very popular with students who are really interested in their science topics that they've learned about and really want to dive deeper in meeting characters or learning more information about specific diseases and disorders. So let me show you some highlights of what we have in the collection, and these are just highlights. We've got a ton of books on this topic. So this first one's called Chasing Orion by Catherine Lasky. In 1952, when Georgie is 11, her family moves to a new Indiana neighborhood where her teenage neighbor has polio and is in an iron lung. The next one, this one's a little silly. You can even tell from the cover of this book how silly it is, but it still has to do with diseases. It's called The Contagious Colors of Mumpley Middle School. When a mysterious illness sweeps through school, causing students to change color, scientist Wilmer Dooley tries to find the cause and the cure. So getting a little more serious again, this one is an awesome book called The Great Trouble by Deborah Hopkinson, a mystery of London, the Blue Death, and a boy called Eel. Eel is an orphan, and his best friend must help Dr. Snow prove that cholera is spread through water and not poisonous air when an epidemic sweeps across their London neighborhood in the 1800s. This one back here has to do with AIDS. This is Alma's Long Run. It takes place in Kenya during the 1980s when Alma must choose between staying to help her family and working toward a track scholarship that would take her away from home. So a really good realistic fiction book about some hard decisions that a young person has to make. This one here is called Forged in the Fire by Anne Turnbull. After spending 3 years apart, Susanna is eager to be reunited with her fiancé Will, who is due to arrive in London so that they can be married. But it's the summer of 1665, and unbeknownst to Susanna, the plague is beginning to spread throughout the city. So that's going to be a love story, but a lot of adventure as well as taking into account some historical events that happened a long time ago. Jennifer Choldenko wrote Al Capone Does My Shirts, that series, and this is another book by her called Chasing Secrets. Lizzie and her secret friend Noah, who is hiding in her house, plan to rescue Noah's father from the quarantine Chinatown and save everyone they love from contracting the plague that is spreading through 1900 San Francisco. These are really interesting books to read now, too, aren't they, with what's going on in our world? So Alex Flynn writes really, really powerful and serious realistic fiction, and this is another one by him. It's called Fade to Black. An HIV-positive high school student is hospitalized after being attacked, and the person who did it is accused of the crime, and the only witness, a classmate with Down syndrome, reveals how the assault has changed their lives by telling about it after it's happened. So really serious topic on that one, but an important story to tell as well. Fever 1793 is by Laurie Halse Anderson. She is such a great novelist. She really researches her subject matter before she writes. This one's about the yellow fever epidemic of 1793 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You can even see, look at her eye, even on the cover here, has like an orange tint to it. This is a really, really powerful story. There's also a nonfiction book I'm going to tell you about in a minute here that also has to do with that topic. They would be a good companion set together. This one is just called Blue. It's by Joyce Moyer Hostetter. Anne becomes the man of the house at age 13 after her father leaves to fight in World War II, forcing Anne to give up her childhood and tend to her family. But when a polio epidemic strikes, Anne faces the most devastating challenge of her life. This one here, look, it makes me cold just looking at the cover of this one. The Cruelest Miles, the heroic story of dogs and men in a race against an epidemic. So check out this one. It tells the story of the Surrey Run, a relay of dog sleds and drivers that was organized to traverse nearly 700 miles in temperatures far below zero in a desperate quest to acquire serum to treat a deadly outbreak of diphtheria in Nome, Alaska in the 1920s. That just sounds like such a fascinating story. So we've had a couple of serious ones. This one is a little sillier and it's just super fun. So such a great author. This one's called Don't Even Think About It. They look like they're up to something, don't they? The way she has her little sunglasses peeking down like that. So what happens when a group of high school kids go in for flu shots and end up being able to read each other's minds? So that one's a lighthearted one, but doesn't that sound fun? That sounds like a really fun one. This one has a chickenpox theme. So look, it's by Tiki and Rondé Barber. It's kind of fun when sports stars become authors. It's called Red Zone. Identical twins, Rondé and Tiki Barber's excitement over the approaching state championship football game turns to worry when there's a chickenpox outbreak at their junior high school. So those are just a sampling of some of the chapter books we have on diseases and disorders. And now here are a few informational books that you may find interesting. This one, Plagues, Pox, and Pestilence. Warning, this book is infectious. So you may start reading it and just can't put it down. It's really visual, really fun to learn about the topic. We have some more specific ones. This one's specifically on tick-borne illnesses, and we have others as well. Again, just email me and I'm happy to help you if there's something specific you're looking for. This one's on the bubonic plague. The cover of this makes me really creeped out. This tells the story of America's first plague epidemic. Public health doctors who desperately fought to end it, political leaders who tried to keep it hidden, and the brave scientists who uncovered the plague's secrets. Oh boy, go science, right? That's awesome. This one too, this one's called Outbreak. It's the science of pandemics, and it's written before our current pandemic. But wouldn't that be interesting to read about that now with everything that's going on? A few other ones, Outbreak, The Plagues That Changed History. That one's super visual. I love the cover of that book. That's so cool. But it's just a slim book. It's like it's like a picture book that you can read through and find out a little bit of information on different plagues throughout history. Flu Fighter, this one, How I Survived a Worldwide Pandemic, The School Bully, and the Craziest Game of Dodgeball Ever. So another one that's a little lighter and a little silly. There's this one called Outbreak. There's also Mimi's Village, How Basic Healthcare Transformed It. That's a picture book story about Mimi, a young girl living in an African village, witnessing the benefits of basic healthcare in her community. And then here's that book I was telling you about earlier. This is another book about the yellow fever epidemic of 1793 that would pair nicely with Fever 1793. And then this one is on Ebola, the epidemic. So it's just some informational books about specific diseases and disorders as well. Click the button under the video to read more summaries and to place any of these books on hold.